Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome to my every game I've ever played tier list. So I had so much fun making that Naughty Dog tier list a while back that I decided I wanted to do another one, but I wasn't sure how, I wasn't sure what to do it over that would fit with my channel, so I just decided I would try and think of every game I've ever played and rank all of those. Obviously this isn't every game I've ever played. I'm going to split it up into different episodes. I have 5 different categories I've sorted them into, and this first one is platformers. So I'm going to start with this one, and then there's going to be a series of 5 videos over this whole tier list. One reason is I didn't want to make a 3-hour long video, and the other is because I just didn't want there to be too many things on the tier list to where you couldn't see everything. Because it would eventually start blocking out the previous entries, and I think it'd be better if it was split up. So as you can see, I've got a name for all of the tiers over here. Right off the bat, I made this tier especially for Crash Purple. We're not going to get into ranking the rest of the games yet, but I just had to put that one there because that is not even a video game. That is so far beneath anything else on this list that it couldn't be anywhere else besides its own tier, basically. So this was meant to be the big Crash Bandicoot Spyro crossover that I'm sure a lot of people wanted back in the day because they were both the biggest platform icons at the time. But this game is on the Game Boy, which alone would limit it enough, but it's not even a good Game Boy game. It's really just a collection of boring minigames with the Crash name slapped on it so it'll sell, basically. There was 2 different games. There was a Spyro one, Spyro Orange, I believe it was called, and Crash Purple. And basically the idea was you would get trading cards from the minigames and you could trade them across with people who had the other version of the game. But they were so boring and there was no point to them, basically. There was no incentive for collecting them other than that. Really, there's no reason to play this game ever. I don't know why you would. Even as a kid who was a huge Crash fan, who pretty much liked anything he played, thought this game was boring. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about the other tiers. So these are different catchphrases from various franchises in this list down here. First of all, we have the D tier, which is "Oh no!" Then right after that, we have the C tier, which is "Don't!" Then we have the B tier, which is "I'm ready!" For A tier, we have
Supercharge. Excellent.
And last but not least, for S tier, we have and so I'll have a different set of tiers names for like each of the different videos because they'll go with like whatever games are on that list, of course. Alright, anyways, let's go ahead with the rest of the games. And first off, we have Crash 4, the new Crash 4, by the way. This game is so much better than the other Crash 4, which is Wrath of Cortex over here. This is the first main Crash game we've got since 2008, I think. And even then, those weren't like the Crash games that most people knew and loved. This game basically brought back everything that you love about the originals, but the platforming is way more demanding. It's way more engaging than the other originals. That just shows you how modern it is. These games came out in the 90s, so of course they're a little simple by today's standards. But this game did a perfect job at just making a modern version of Crash, basically. Taking that old gameplay and adding new little things to make it just fit today's landscape. The only main problem I have with Crash Bandicoot is its completion requirements. Usually in the original trilogy of Crash games, I was like, they begged you to be complete. Like, you're missing out on tons of the experience if you don't complete those games. But with this, I feel like you're better off just playing through the main game because completion is a nightmare. There's just way too much to do, and it's just way too difficult for how long the levels are. I have reviewed this game, so I'm not going to go too far into detail. But basically, I think it's an A tier Crash game because it is a lot of fun. If you just play it through normally, I think it's the best Crash game if you're just playing through it. But if you're going for completion, it is a nightmare. And since that is a big part of why I like those games so much, that does take it down from an S tier. But still a very good game though, and like the main game itself is just amazing. Okay, next up we have Spyro the Dragon, the original. Just to make it clear, I played the reignited versions of these games. I never played the originals, but they're essentially the same game from what I have heard. They just look a little different. But yeah, Reignited was my introduction into the Spyro series, pretty much. The first one actually is my favorite out of the trilogy, which I don't know if that's common or not, but from what I have heard, I thought Spyro 2 was the one that everyone loved the most. But I like the first one the most. I think it did the best job. It had the most pure platforming. The second and third one introduced a lot of different gameplay styles that aren't always fun. The first one had straight up just Spyro, basically, and I really like that. It's a lot like the first Crash Bandicoot game in that way. But the levels were like Crash Bandicoot, but even more open. There was a lot more to explore than there was in like the linear Crash Bandicoot levels. And the enemies were cool because they actually reacted to you, like they would follow you instead of just having set paths that they move ahead of time, like in Crash Bandicoot. This is another game that begs to be completed because it has a percentage counter for each level that shows all that you've collected, which is just a little thing, but it makes it a lot more fun of a thing to complete. There are a couple flaws, I would say. Like the boss fights, for one, are all really bad, pretty much. I mean, they're just like a slightly stronger enemy. There's nothing really to the boss fights. Like they don't feel at all like boss fights. Like there's no health bar or name on the screen or anything. It's just another enemy basically. I think this game belongs in A tier. Also, I think it's a really good game, but I wouldn't personally put it in S tier because if it does have a few, like, I don't know, it has to be pretty much perfect for it to be an S tier. Okay, so Tearaway was a Vita game, a PS Vita game. Yeah, you remember that thing? I loved this game. This was the only Vita game this is the only Vita exclusive game I can specifically remember like putting a lot of time into. It's made by people that made Little Big Planet, and you can definitely tell because of all like the creativity put into the art style and everything. Everything's made of paper. It's a really cool look. It has been unfortunately it has been quite a while since I played this game, so there's not too much I can say on it. But I do remember it being a ton of fun as a platformer. I think I'll just put it on B tier. I remember it being a pretty great game, but I haven't went back and played it the way I have with some of these other games. I think it's a pretty great game. I've only played it once, so I am not as familiar with it, and since it's been so long, I can't really comfortably place it any higher. So I think it just will stay there for now. Okay, next we have SpongeBob SquarePants the movie game. Now, movie tie-in games are pretty much always terrible. This is one of the exceptions, though. I think this one's pretty good. It's not as good as Battle for Bikini Bottom. It has its flaws. Like, the gameplay gets kind of annoying sometimes because there are some people who just want to progress through the story, and this game doesn't let you do that. You have to go back and get a certain amount of collectibles before you can move on to another area. And some of the missions to get those collectibles are just not fun. Like, there's races with the paddy wagon, which are fun at first, I would say, but they get kind of old. And then there are like ring race. Oh yeah, that's the thing. They're on the races. They're not only races, but there's like a ring race, a timed race, and like there's another one too. There's like 3 different types of races for each level that you have to do. So it just gets so old doing that same track over and over. But the actual gameplay in this game is really fun. The platforming, it's pretty much just as good as it was in Battle for Bikini Bottom. It's just all those other things that you have to do to get through the story kind of just take it down. So because those extra things do take up a lot of the gameplay, I think I'll have to put it in C tier. I just can't put it higher because it takes up about half the game to do all that extra stuff that's not fun. Alright, next up is Psychonauts, which I just played recently actually on stream for the first time ever. I enjoyed Psychonauts a lot. It's so funny. It's one of the funniest games I've ever played. The writing is like top notch. The gameplay can be pretty fun too. It has a lot of abilities you unlock throughout the course of the game as you level up and stuff. I think it paces it pretty good where you're unlocking a power pretty much all the time. But the gameplay is a little clunky, I would say. It doesn't always feel as good to play as other platformers. Some of the levels in this game, though, are great. Like, they're super creative. They're all, like, taking place inside the minds of characters within the game. So they're all, like, pretty diverse, and they have, like, really creative ideas into the themes for them. So yeah, it's got great dialogue. The levels are really pretty cool. Just the clunky gameplay really is all that holds it back for me, so I'll put it right here in B tier. Because the gameplay just doesn't always feel good, but other than that, like, this is a pretty great game, and I'm really looking forward to the second one. Okay, Super Mario 64. I also recently played this, but not on stream, but when the 3D All-Stars came out, I sat and played the whole thing in 2 days for the first time ever. I had never played this on the 64, really. I had just seen clips from it and stuff, but I really think this game holds up pretty well, especially for how early of a platformer it is. Like, this is one of the first 3D platformers there ever were, and the controls are still, like, they still have pretty good depth to them, actually. It feels really good to play. Like, the control scheme in this game I like even more than Galaxy, and, I mean, that's one of my favorite games ever. I like the diversity of the controls in this game. The levels still hold up really well. They look great. The only thing, like, it feels a little clunky, of course, because it's one of the first 3D platformers. Of course it does. But I would say overall, the level design and the castle, the hub area is so cool. Like, that's one of my favorite hub worlds I've been to in a Mario game, if not my favorite actually. There's so many secrets to find and stuff. But no, I mean, I was completely absorbed with this game, start to finish, even in 2020 playing it for the first time. So I would say that would have to go in A tier. It's a really great game still. And you know there's no nostalgia involved with that because I didn't play it till last year, so. Okay, next up we have Jak 3, and this is one of the Naughty Dog games I already made a tier list for, so whenever I get to the Naughty Dog games, I'm going to be real brief with them since I've already put them on a tier list. I don't really want to repeat myself too much. To put it quickly, Jak 3 is, in my opinion, not as good as the other two. It just has way too many things going on, and it feels like it was really rushed. I just don't think it was as good as the first or second one, so I'll go ahead and put that in, I think it's C tier. It's not bad. It's a decent game. It's a good game, even, I would say. Okay, Ape Escape 2. This is a game I got on PSN for like $5 on sale one time. I never played it on PS2, but this game is really fun too. It's not as much of a platformer as like these other games. Like there's definitely platforming in it, but it's more about using all the gadgets you have at your disposal to capture these evil monkeys. It's really fun though. They have like, each of them have their own name, and if you scan them, they have like a description. They all have like different behaviors and stats and stuff that you need to know for catching them. Yeah, and from what I remember, I enjoyed every level in this game. The boss fights were pretty fun, except I was pretty annoyed by the giant ape one towards the end. If you've played it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But anyway, but pretty much this game was fun all the way through for me. I enjoyed all of it, so I think that would go in A tier. Okay, so Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I am playing this game right now. I'm like 75% through it, I would say, from what I've seen on the internet. I love this game so far. It's one of the best platformers I played in a long time. The mechanics just keep getting more and more depth as you go. Like, it starts out really simple to where it can even get kind of boring just at the beginning. But as you go on, you unlock new abilities that just keep adding to the depth of the gameplay. It keeps making the platforming more and more demanding. And the soundtrack, the music in this game is awesome so far. Like some of the music during the chase scenes and boss fights, it just gives me chills. Like it's so epic. Obviously, it's a very pretty game too. That's what first caught my eye with it. I was like, man, this game is just beautiful. I need to play that. If you look at the screenshots and stuff, every level's gorgeous. It's like a painting everywhere you go. The only thing so far that has really annoyed me about it is sometimes you need an ability, like to progress one area of the map, you need an ability that's at another place. And it's not always clear where you need to go to get that stuff. At least not from me. That might just be a problem with me. I don't know. But I just don't always know where to go to get the next power up and be able to progress further. So that gets a little annoying sometimes where I have to look it up and stuff. But other than that, like it's pretty, so far, I mean, so far that's a nitpick, and I can't really find any other flaws with it at this moment. I think that right now I'm gonna make that our first S tier. Okay, next is Super Mario Galaxy, which for a long time has been one of my favorite games of all time. This game is pretty much a perfect Mario game. It's definitely the most mature Mario game. Like it's a lot darker than the others. I mean, it's still Mario. It's not, it's not the darkest thing out there, but it's just way more, it just feels like the stakes are way higher. Like it's a lot more serious. And the soundtrack goes with that perfectly. It's a way bigger orchestral soundtrack than like what you've seen in the other Mario games. It feels big, which is great because this game takes place in space. So the levels are just so unique. It has like a crazy gravity system. Like you're walking around planets and you're switching perspectives constantly, but somehow it just works. Like it doesn't seem like it would. But yeah, I've been playing through this game again lately on 3D All Stars, and it's just as fun as I remember it. So I definitely think this is an S tier game. I can't really think of anything wrong with it. Okay, so Cuphead. I wasn't sure whether to include this on platformers or not, because it's kind of a platformer, but it's also kind of like a boss rush, like a bullet hell game. But I still decided to just put it here because I didn't know where else I could put it. I haven't actually finished Cuphead though. I was on the third world, but this game is just so hard. It's got an awesome art style. It looks really unique. It looks like nothing else. I mean, it looks like a really old cartoon, like an old Mickey Mouse cartoon. But as far as games, I've never seen another game with this art style. It just looks so good for a game like this. But it is so difficult. I don't know if I ever will finish this game. It's so stressful to play. The bosses are just insanely difficult. And I usually play it on co-op with my girlfriend, so that makes it even worse. Overall, though, I don't know of much wrong with this game except the fact that I can't beat it. So I'll just put this on A tier. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna put it on A tier. Some might argue it would belong in S tier, but I'm kind of ranking these based on my own personal enjoyment. And that game is just like too difficult to me where I don't really have fun when I play it even. But I totally understand that it's a great game, and that's why I still put it in A tier. Okay, so next up is Astro's Playroom, which is it's a free PS5 demo basically. It just shows off the hardware of the controller. This game's a ton of fun. It's only like 4 hours, so I kind of feel weird even putting it on this list. But I don't know. It does a great job at displaying like all of the new features of the DualSense controller. And it's a really cool nostalgia trip for all of the PlayStation generations, basically. This is such a short game, so not much to say about it, but if you're a PlayStation fanboy, then you will definitely be smiling the entire time you play this. Since it's, I mean, it's so short, I can't really... I'll just put it here, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because I can't feel comfortable putting a tech demo up with these other games here. Okay, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is also one of my favorite games of all time. I played it non-stop growing up. It's the best SpongeBob game there is. They did the best job at capturing what SpongeBob feels like in this game. It really feels like you're playing through your own SpongeBob episodes with some of the levels. And you just get to explore all of the environments you're familiar with if you watch the show. And growing up, that was, of course, the coolest thing ever. I still enjoy it, so... God, I mean, can't even imagine how much I enjoyed it back then. If you're not a fan of the show, though, it doesn't really offer anything that other 3D platformers don't. It's a fairly basic 3D platformer, just with the added charm of being able to play in SpongeBob worlds. So for me, it was awesome. For others, I could see it being in B tier, but for me, it's definitely in A tier. I mean, even like the boss fights are great. Like the Robo SpongeBob boss fight towards the end, the final boss, is like one of the best final bosses I played in any game. So yeah, I think I can pretty comfortably place it in the A tier. Okay, these next three are the Crash Bandicoot trilogy. Again, I've already talked about those, so very brief on these. Crash Bandicoot 1 was great. It's a little dated by now, but it has the best atmosphere, I think. And yeah, I think it's a pretty solid B tier. I'm not sure where I put these last time, but I'm scaling them with different games now, so it might be a little different. Second one, it's basically an improvement over Crash 1 in almost every way except the atmosphere, I would say. The gameplay is a lot better. It just feels better to control. The music is more memorable. Yeah, I mean, it had a little more diversity too. There was a couple of vehicles to control in it. It's just basically a better Crash 1. I mean, all around. Crash 3 is my personal favorite, but I also understand that it had way too many vehicles to try and add gameplay diversity. So, but I think a lot of things about it are the best in the series, like the boss fights. I think the soundtrack is great again, pretty much just even with the second one for me. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there in A tier because while it's my favorite, I can totally understand that there are way too many vehicles that aren't fun to use, and yeah, it's not perfect. Now, Crash Twinsanity, I think I like this game more than almost anybody because this is actually, and I might be killed for this, but it's my favorite Crash game. Platformer wise, at least. Now, I can definitely see when I look back and play it now that it's definitely not as well polished as the rest of the games. It was very rushed, so there's a lot of spots where it's just it's unfinished. I mean, the glitches with this game are infamous, but luckily you don't really run into too many if you're not looking for them. So you can break the game pretty easily, but if you're just playing, it's not really going to interrupt your experience a whole lot. I just love the humor in this game. The new Cortex voice fit perfect for the way they were doing it. And while it was unfinished, I can't help but see the potential of like how great this game could have been. Because I love everything about this game, really. It's just that they clearly weren't able to put everything they wanted to in there. So I'll have to put it in B tier. Because if it were personally with me, I would keep it up with the others, but I understand that technically it's not really as good as those games. Okay, so Spyro 3 was I think this was my least favorite I think this is personally my least favorite Spyro game, as much as I still enjoy it. It was, again, it had the Crash 3 problem where it just had way too many different ways of giving you diverse gameplay. There's a lot of characters to control, but I did play it in the reignited version, and I've heard some of the characters control better in that, so that might have helped to where because I wasn't very bothered by the additional characters you play as. I thought they were pretty fun for the most part. But still, I preferred the first game just playing as Spyro the whole time. Like the other playable characters weren't bad, but I just would much rather play as Spyro at the end of the day. So I think I'm going to put this one in B tier. Yeah, it's still a good game. I still enjoyed it all the way through. So Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy. This is easily my favorite Jak and Daxter game. Again, I won't talk about it too much. It was a Naughty Dog game that I've already put on the tier list. To put it short, this game is just so fun to complete, and the whole world is interconnected. It is just, there's like no loading screens in the game. It's so cool. You can just go from one level to the next seamlessly. And that's something you don't see too often in video games, so it was really cool to go back and play that. That's definitely S tier for me. That's one of my favorite platformers of all time. And I only played it like a year ago, so that's saying something. Jak 2, it's a lot different than Jak 1. They put gunplay into the mix, and it's a lot darker. Basically, I think it's a pretty great game still, but it's not near what the first one was, in my opinion. I think it belongs in B tier. It's just there's too many difficulty spikes for it to be as fun as that game to me. Okay, so Little Big Planet. I have played all 3 Little Big Planet games. I just didn't want to put all 3 Little Big Planets down because they kind of all blend together in my head. Because there's the story mode, but mostly what I played would be the community aspect of it, where you play other people's levels. So really the games weren't any different in that aspect, except they would add a few new things to use in each new game. But Little Big Planet, I think, is just such a charming game. It's so fun. It just feels so fun to play with your friends and play the ridiculous levels that people make on the internet and stuff. And even the story, from what I remember, was pretty fun, like the campaign levels. The platforming itself, though, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's kind of the same way with Psychonauts. It's fun, but it does the job, but it's nothing like crazy satisfying to control or anything. I think that'll be also in B tier. I really like that game, but I just don't think it matches up to some of these. Okay, Ratchet and Clank. To be specific, this is the remake for PS4. This is the only Ratchet and Clank game I've played, which for some people would mean that I've never really played Ratchet and Clank. I know that the first one, the characters are way better in the first one. Ratchet and Clank, from what I hear, are just completely washed out versions of themselves in this game. And I mean, I could see that from playing it. They weren't interesting at all, really. It's really just the gameplay that I liked in this game. I had fun with all of the gameplay. Like, I was always having fun playing this game. I just didn't really care about the characters the way that I heard I would have if I played the original. So yeah, I'll go back and play the original one day, but overall, I really enjoyed this game. If it were just gameplay-wise, this would probably be an A tier, but since the characters are so kind of lame, honestly, I'll have to put it down to B. Yeah, it doesn't have as much character as some of these other games. That's definitely part of the importance of a platformer, I would say. Gameplay is the most important thing in a platformer, I would say, but I still, if these characters and these worlds have charm, it's definitely going to make me enjoy the game a lot more, so there just really wasn't that here. Okay, Rayman Legends is so good. I'm going to put it in S tier. I'm not going to waste time, but I will talk about it a little bit. I played it with all the way through in co-op with my girlfriend and sometimes a couple other people, but it's just so fun to complete this game. It has like these really unique music levels at the end of each world where you're kind of running and jumping at the beat of a song, and it's like usually a cover of a popular song that you've probably heard. This game had so much content though. Like, there was all of the levels in the base game, and then they put levels from Rayman Origins, which was great because I never played that one. They have these online challenges. They have a couple mini games. There's just a lot to do in this game. There's definitely a lot of content for what you're buying. I really can't think of a flaw with this game, to be honest. I enjoyed it so much all the way through, so yeah, it definitely goes in S tier. Okay, the Simpsons game. This is not a very popular Simpsons game. Most people, when they think of good Simpsons games, they probably think of Hit and Run, which I never really played much. I played a tiny bit. But this is the Simpsons games I grew up with. And I remember very much enjoying this game, although it's definitely not perfect. There's like the gameplay, again, it's one of those things where it gets the job done, but it's not great to control. Some of the levels are really annoying to play through from what I remember. But there are also some like really high points in this game. Like, there's a lot of levels that parody other games like GTA and stuff. And then towards the end, the last level is literally in heaven, which is pretty funny. And I mean, the final boss in heaven is you play Dance Dance Revolution against God. So I mean, what is there not to like? S tier, easy. No, I'm kidding. So I think I would have to put it fittingly in D tier. SpongeBob SquarePants Creature from the Krusty Krab. This is one of the lesser known SpongeBob games. I think Battle for Bikini Bottom and the movie game are what most people remember. This game's a really weird one though. For like, I haven't sat and played through this game in years, but basically the whole thing is a dream. So every level is just so bizarre. The tone feels really weird. It doesn't feel like SpongeBob. It feels like something completely different. But I still enjoy it a lot. The gameplay's fun. The levels are very diverse because they're like all entirely different things. It's another one of those situations though where there are some very annoying levels to get through, kind of like The Simpsons. But I think it would perfectly fit between the movie game and Battle for Bikini Bottom. Also a fitting tier for this game. Okay, so Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage. Part of it may have been because I was playing Reunited, but I was a little disappointed in this game. I thought it was easily going to be the best one from what I had heard from others. But I still definitely enjoyed this first one more. Although I enjoyed this one a lot, but it had too many gameplay styles. Not as many as the third one, but it just added really weird sections that were just so weird to play. Like, why is this necessary? I'd rather just play a Spyro. I mean, you do technically play a Spyro the whole time, just sometimes he'll be piloting vehicles that are so weird, and sometimes you'll randomly be playing ice hockey, or it's just random stuff like that it comes out of nowhere. It's like, I mean, it's fine, but I kind of think the game was better without that stuff. I'll put it on the same tier as this third game because, I don't know, it's not lower, definitely. If there was a tier between these, that's where I'd put Spyro 2. Oh man, okay, Super Mario Galaxy 2. I love it. It's amazing, but there's not much I can say about it that I haven't already said about the first game, because it's pretty much the same game, just the levels are a little more linear and stuff. So yeah, that's again an easy S tier. It's pretty much just more of Galaxy 1, which is awesome, so don't get me wrong, but there's just not much else to say on it. Okay, so Odyssey is the big Switch Mario 3D game. I always thought Galaxy was my favorite, but this game makes me question that, because now that I'm replaying Galaxy again, I'm starting to think I enjoy this game a little bit more. I just kind of like the layout of this game, where it was like big open world levels where you go around collecting a bunch of stuff. And like in the Galaxy games, the levels are a lot smaller now that I've played this game. And you could argue that having 1,000 moons in this game makes it less special to collect them than like Power Stars. But I don't know, I loved getting that little collectible every so often. Like you're constantly being rewarded with something basically. I don't know, I personally enjoy that a lot. And again, with the open levels, the boss fights were pretty fun. Not like the best thing ever, but they were pretty fun. I'll put that in S tier though, of course, because that's probably my favorite 3D Mario game. Okay, well, this is not a great game to end off the list with, so we're going to be ending on quite a low note. This is the original Crash 4 that I was talking about earlier, the one that's not nearly as good as this one. This was the first platformer Crash game after Naughty Dog left, and it definitely shows. It just basically had everything wrong going for it. From what I understand, they had a small time to make the game, same with Twinsanity. And it was just, they were working with new hardware. The PS2 was new at the time, so it just looks really bad. It just has that really ugly early PS2 game look. The levels were pretty bland looking compared to the old ones, and the gameplay it doesn't feel as good to control, so which makes the rest of the game not as fun to play. The one thing people do give this game usually is that it has a good soundtrack, and from what I've heard lately, I can definitely agree with that. I like the soundtrack of it. But that's basically the only great thing about it, so I think that's going to be the only game I put in D tier. I know, great way to finish it off, but anyways, that's my tier list for the platform section of all the games I've ever played. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will be back next week with the next category, which should be multiplayer and VR games. I had a bunch of those together because there wasn't enough of either. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.